Hello there, beautiful ascending souls, and welcome to my video update on our conscious relationships. If you happen to remember, and if you've watched my recent videos on relationships, you know that everything was in the theme of our relationships ascending and moving on to a new level of creation. But for a lot of individuals, it is becoming still very important that not just we're becoming more aware in our relationships, through becoming more aware of who we are, what's our own unique role, because once we establish that and we become our own pillar and we understand our divine purpose, not only the greater scheme of things, but also purpose in this lifetime, in this reality as of now, then we take the next step. We're going to be invited to take the next step in our relationships to not define and limit our role together, but to understand a moving life force that flows between not just ourselves, but the conscious relationships we are building within our community, a special friend, divine companion in general, as you know I like to call it, your divine mate, your divine partner, your family. Either way, all the relationships that are moving from that transitioning period of being more karmic in terms of finishing up, wrapping up a certain cycle of evolution and moving into a new spiral of our ascending relationships. Now we're going to be asked to become more self-assertive, self-assess, and assess what do we really wish to build through certain relationships. For that to take place, it's very important to build the first crucial understanding. And recently I've been going through this myself, and as I came back home from a very short holiday, which was much needed, and as you can see, I'm still enjoying myself in my beautiful nature kingdom here in the Alban Alps. I saw this video that talked about star seeds and then anchors, which are the kind of relationships that coexist in order to support each other's purpose and growing and evolving. The first wave through awakening, and then maybe the second wave that would follow after is more supporting the material reality of this existence. So the video spoke about something that I've shared many times in my own videos in my own way, that it's very important to know what kind of type of purpose we have chosen, to be really grounded, because a lot of times we wish for something and maybe it's not our path, and we will feel this. And recently somebody shared with me this very simply in terms of, if I knew exactly what I would do in this new and something different, I would, maybe quit what I'm doing right now, but I don't have that vision yet. I don't know what I would be doing. So I know that what I'm doing now is perfect. And why I want to share this video especially is because still as humans, a lot of the times we're not aware of our natural roles. In animal kingdom and plant kingdom, everything correlates in a beautiful flow of simplicity, total understanding of creation, and where each sovereign individuum holds a special place. It's called your sacred space. What are you a pillar of? For some people, they're more builders. Even materially, they need to build things more. Some people are more in the other note, which is, absorb and anchor these higher dimensional energies now coming into the planet. And first of all, I reminded you that I'm sharing more about this in my Cosmic Convergence video upload. It's going to be a short workshop to bring us deeper into this understanding what this actually means, not just in a greater galactic sense, but also in our daily life. What does it mean to live in a state of cosmic convergence? When you understand things from a much higher principle, the way how things correlate and connect together in a bigger picture, imagine how it is to always live in a bigger picture, because the human aspect, in comparison to other forms of life and creation, doesn't always have that knowing, and a lot of times we need constant approval, constant confirmation. We need to always think to make sense. We need to rationalize. We need to know the next step in advance so we could take the kind of risk we're taking in the now, instead of just allowing to feel that everything that is already exists for a reason. It might change tomorrow, it might not, but it is exactly as it needs to be. A lot of times we crave for that approval from other people, but we don't yet give it to them. We say, you're not awakened, how you live is not good enough for me. I don't like that because I'm awakening, and you're not doing the same things I am, and you're still more physical and involved in these kind of physical structures that still exist. A lot of them are falling apart. Let's not forget that. But a lot of them are being refined, so lifted up to this new level. So with these relationships that a person called star seeds and then anchors, it means that there's a reaction in a way taking place. I can't really find a little world because I see the energy, and sometimes it's hard to give it a physical word right away. But what I can say is that it's almost like this bridging that's taking place. So the anchor helps the kind of person that is working more with the aspect of subtle energies, that this is not always seen. Before it materializes into form, it's not always seen. So as the person described, where your heart is centered, so where your purpose is within your soul, decision and choice for this lifetime is where you need to be. So let's say you're more anchored on bringing and anchoring these higher dimensional energies onto this planet, the heart of your manifestation will be fifth dimensional, for example, or higher. Or, you know, it doesn't even need to be one dimension specifically. It's just the energy that needs to be moving through your conscious conduit at a certain specific time. It might be even 12th dimensional. So what I'm saying is that the other aspect, the other pole of this cosmic convergence is the part that will anchor this. It will anchor this into the physical structure. So when we begin to awaken, a lot of the star-seeded beings and beings who know they've came to work more with refined energies, not always with things that are so making sense and logic in this form, and not always going in the systems to change them, but working more with the crystalline ray and the diamond ray and these frequencies that build up to the unification with the crystalline diamond, with the golden ray, all in unity consciousness, to call this state of unity, of complete unity and crystallization. So with this in mind, it's important to know that how this is manifested in our own life will be a lot of times presented through a certain form of a relationship that will support you more physically as you're moving along with your Ascension Pioneer work that is a lot of times more ethereal. It's not always solid. It does lead to solidity. It does not mean that the projects you're working with are not solid, but I'm talking about the kind of solidity or stability that is more covering the material plane. So these beings who have their heart anchored, even if they would wish to be aware, they have volunteered at a certain level to anchor the kind of structure that still is needed as we're making this transition. So a lot of times we wish for these people to be more like us, to be more awake, to be where we are. And yet, if that were so, as this transition period is still in place, it's still unfolding, then none of us would be taking care of some other things. That is why, from the higher perspective on our soul level, the souls have made these agreements prior to this ascending reality, what the level of their choosing will be. And let's say the souls who are advanced to say, I'm going to be moving in a complete space of freedom, and I know that I'm not always going to know how I'm going to be supported financially with my living situations, with paying bills and things like that. And let's say soul companions that said, well, my advancement comes more with knowing how to work with structure and form, so I'm going to cover that part. And that does not mean that these other parts of the cosmic convergence, let's call it like that, which is that unification process of all of our parts, because in truth, when you see the bigger picture in a galactic sense, you will see that all these parts are one. So it's just us playing different parts. And as we have this understanding on a much bigger level, we will see that this is all needed. It's not higher ranked, lower ranked, higher density, lower density. It is how it is expressed in form. But in truth, it's our perception. But yet, as we're making a transition, we know that this transition is taking place on this physical plane. So maybe for a lot of you who wanted to have more aware relationships in that kind of sense, you wanted them to be a certain way you projected them to be. So you weren't yet experiencing true freedom and that liberation and unconditional love in that relationship and letting it be as it is. So you rather had your own idea of that person needs to be exactly like you or it's not working out. With that, we do this projection and we're consciously or subconsciously limiting it. We're not allowing its full expression to come into form. So we miss opportunities and for more abundance, for more cooperation, for more synergy that's coming into the synthesis that we're doing within this cosmic convergence. And because of that, we're just postponing the inevitable. It will evolve anyway in its own time, but a lot of times in certain relationship dynamics, we're preventing it before fully blossoming instead of just allowing its course to naturally take place. So in truth, our souls already know this. So as we're practicing to bring this into our physical form in our actual daily life relationships, it's not just that we have a mental understanding of this or higher understanding, but then we need to live it. So living it means that it's time now when you're engaging in a certain relationship, that it's not so frivolous or not that conscious, because we need now on this level this maturity that will assess. And that's not the same as definition. That means that you will allow the spirit path to reveal to you the nature, the true nature of that relationship, what maybe you're still experiencing hardship in. Or you want it to be your twin flame and it's not. Or you want it to be a certain thing and it's not. Because if a certain purpose within a relationship is to be that essence, which is very specific, it will be without you trying so hard to make it become that. As humans, we sometimes still do that, and it's our self-sabotage that prevents us from just living in a natural flow of what our souls have already chosen, and they're constantly choosing through that passionate knowing that keeps us anchored in the now moment. So when you anchor yourself in this very now moment, you know, a lot of people even ask me in readings, what's the purpose of this relationships? And instead of just allowing themselves to let that be revealed to them naturally, they're trying to scratch on it and bringing so much effort and hardships, and they're having these doubts and old fears coming up, which is good. You know, when you're doubting a certain relationship to play a certain role, or you're doubting your feelings in it, it's something that still needs to come up. It's those parts of us that are not yet in full enlightenment, as in terms of physical form, to bring that enlightenment from the higher planes, from that higher understanding. So I'm going to show you towards the end of this video a very short exercise you can do by yourself or with a certain partner, a friend. We've done this activation. It was very pleasant. It doesn't mean that it will have an effect right away, but it's you anchoring more and more of that higher understanding and letting the natural course of the relationship reveal itself. So aside from what was shared in that video about starseeds and their anchors, I want to give you even higher perspective, which is you co-create with that. It's not so linear, but at the same time you merge those wills, let's say if two individuals or more, with the triangulation of a greater will that already has all of our wills, that already is like almost like inviting us to this greater presence of that grand central sun and beyond, that we can live and exist within that, knowing that we have already chosen, and we're always choosing on a much higher level that is much more perceptible than what we perceive sometimes when we're not anchored in a moment, when our past or our future really clogs up the true vision about that relationship and its true purpose and nature. Because maybe you're the kind of being that is always devoted to service, like I am, and a lot of times you will need people that will physically hold you, show you some physical things, how to live your life more physically, bring more solidity, bring more physical enjoyment in your life. And when they come with more awareness, you will have more chance to be receptive and open for that, instead of pushing it aside and saying, well, that's not aware enough for me. I don't, you know, in true relationships of this now, of this new earth we're moving into, because we're consciously co-creating it with each choice that we make, we're actually not about, oh, who's more aware, who's more enlightened, who has more embodiment, but we're about that exchange that always takes place consciously in the now moment. And I've gone through this within the dynamics of one relationship that was almost a year, and I've seen it blossom to the levels that, you know, it's still much blossoming, and there always will be. But when our egoic self that sometimes has these needs and beliefs and, you know, contradictions steps aside and allows this greater picture to unfold, then so much more can really be created, that we can partake in, that we can start to thrive in, because our relationships are meant for not just one, but when we're focused at the two within one, and then the more within two, the group consciousness thrives instead of just survives, then this means that we're always focused on the bigger picture, not just what we want it to be, but something that will be for the greater good. And if we keep pushing for something that we want, then we're not allowing the greater good, then we will have obstacles, because we're seemingly perceiving them, because our soul is showing us that's not the way. And the only truth about obstacles or blockages is because there's something for us that we need to see in order that we move deeper into the truth, instead of the illusion sometimes we create, like a bubble of haziness around us when we're not really staying in our uniqueness. So let's say you have chosen to be at a very specific role at this time, which will also continue to change because you're expanding. It's not so static. But you have a uniqueness at this time, how you are in creation. It's almost like observing an animal. You know that the butterfly has a different purpose than, I don't know, a wolf, an elephant, a tiger. You know what I mean? It's in animal plant or plant kingdom, that's naturally so. But as humans, sometimes because we have overdeveloped our brain, it wasn't always in synchronicity, in sync with our heart intelligence. It's almost like trying to develop one without the other, but this is where we're changing this now. We're changing the timelines because we're converging into a timeline that embraces both in equality. And companionship is the only result from that when we really do it. So I'm going to show you a quick exercise. It's like almost a meditation you can do. You can do it yourself. You don't have to have a partner. Or maybe there's a long distance between you and someone that is in your life. But you can also do it together. And it will bring the kind of energy space, the sacred space that will provide everything that we will need. There's two white butterflies flying over all the time as I'm recording this. So this is showing us that's true. Those Holy Spirit blessed unions, they're not just, let's say, a lover to lover, friend to friend. They can go much deeper. They're going to move out into the world in a much greater scale. But we need to first allow it within our most intimate relationships, because it's always within the macro within the micro. So this is how it is. The macro within the micro. Yeah, I always exchange these two. So anyway, what you do is when you start your meditation and moving into a sacred space, this is one of the versions that how Spirit showed me this activation is you see yourself and that person, or there's more of them, or there's a group you're working with, or just you and how you relate to the world. Either way, trust your soul to guide you. And then you imagine almost like you're lifting and lifting off. You're lifting off, you're floating off your body into those realms of the higher perspective. For us, it was easy because we did that in the mountains. And in the mountains, there's almost like this perspective when you're looking down below into the valley and you're holding this higher perspective in the mountain, and yet they are one. So you can use that as well. You can imagine yourself sitting on top of the mountain, and yet you also float above in the infinite sky, in the space. And you see yourself and that person almost like you don't have to physically be together, like hold hands like we do it in the physical, because your spirits are already moving freely. So what you can do is imagine that you're moving in a parallel. You're moving together. And as you do so, you see the setting sun or the rising sun, whatever is best for you. You see that liquid light, golden ball of light in front of you. There's a valley, and you're hovering above that valley. You're observing that space, and you're just seeing how you're moving in a parallel, because it is all parallel. It's all always in divine synchronicity. It's just we and our lower perspectives that don't always feel that. We can't tune into that, but we can. The more we do this conscious work of awareness, integration in our body form. So when you do that, you see yourself floating and then moving into this direction, because that sun, that liquid ball of light, is inviting the two of you to move into a space of something much greater. So it's a triangulation between you, that person, at a greater will, represented with a crystal self, the sun of all suns. And together you join with your internal sun, your inner fusion. And then you just see how that life force pulls you. Where does it pull you toward? Are you moving more apart? Are you moving more together? Could you see yourself without that person in your life altogether? Even if they're not exactly as you, as aware as you are, as embodied as you are in soul. But what do you feel in a greater scheme of things? How you are with this person? What's the soul connection? What's the soul agreement? What's the beauty that you maybe cannot see yet? Ask your soul to show you and allow yourself to receive. And just imagine as you're floating, there might be questions arising. Spirit presence is all over. And Spirit is starting to initiate you by just asking some simple questions. Such as, how are you with this person? Is this person a mirror of you? And how do they reflect the part of you that is maybe not yet full expression, or it's not meant to be because you're meant to be with a certain other essence in this life form? How do you feel that? How is that person, instead of not being like you, how they are mirroring a part of you that you need for your physical attainment, for your future destination, which is only based in the now? How do you feel that? And then can you imagine a life where that person is completely excluded, not there at all? Forget about all the stories your human part has created, like how aware is each and how you relate to some awakened, some not. The relationships are a crucial component of our lives. Everything now is moving into relationship energy. It's the Aquarian age, the grouping, the coming together. All the way at the beginning of that, there needs to be seeding. There's always the seeding part that takes place first. So when you imagine this, like you're almost being pulled, because you're being pulled by that same spirit light. Doesn't matter how you are, how you relate to each other, who's more aware, high ranked or not, that's all an illusion. Just see that light of the crystal self, the sun of all suns, is pulling you both towards that same destination. Maybe it's just you're in a different parallels, but you always are also within that one parallel that pushes you towards that same destination. And now as spirit is hovering above you and all around you, and you can feel it within you, spirit, through your own inner consciousness, starts to ask you some very basic questions as such. And then as you're being pulled closer and closer to that greatness of that sun, and is increasing in size, almost like you can no longer perceive size at all, because all it is just this glowing ball of liquid light. And it's infinite, so you don't no longer perceive it as a ball. You just perceive it as infinite light. And within that, you can just be and rest assured and be at peace that where you are traveling with that companion, that person, that relationship, is moving like a triangulation of your wills, and is always watched over by that greater will, that cosmic pull of that divine plan of perfection and divine logic. And then you trust also that parallel, that polarity. You also trust it. It's not separate from the triangulation which leads to unity. It's all one. And as you do so, you also start to see and feel more the refined version of your new perspective that is birthed about this relationship. And you see how it is your reality right now in this now moment without it, and how it is with it. See which one feels more potent to you, because we can all see into different timelines through feeling. That's our internal lens, the crystalline lens. Before you do any kind of work, I also advise you to just center yourself in the crystalline core, your crystalline heart. Not just your physical heart, that's the base, because you do exist here in this body. But connect with your crystalline core. It's always flowing here. Imagine this beautiful flow of crystalline energy. And then hover above and create this column. See how the column, the white ascension light, pushes you upwards, so that you have that bigger perspective that you can observe. And this is how you're not just being in a relationship, but you're also witnessing. You're simply witnessing the relationship and the unification of it, and what is actually its purpose in co-creation. It not might be what you thought or expected. You might get a new glimpse, but trust that. It's very important that we trust ourselves. A lot of times someone will say something different, and we will feel we're still not that comfortable a lot of times with another when they say something about us. In order to just feel it neutrally, we start to see, yeah, but it's not how it is for me, and we get defensive a lot of times. How about just allowing the other to express fully without us saying yes, but, or the other saying that to us, and just being with where we are, so that we learn to trust ourselves and also trust another. A lot of times we say, I trust myself and my choices, but I don't think you're making the right ones. And the judgment takes place, and judgment takes over, because we need to start becoming more natural, more simple, more attuned to our organic nature, not just that which we have created through these filters and projections. So what I advise is doing this exercise. If it doesn't really feel much, you can do it on a regular basis. It's not really, this does not have to be long. All it takes is the conscious presence, seeing how the white shaft of light through your crystalline core lifts you up. You're witnessing the relationship. You're allowing spirit to initiate you through these questions that are important, and then seeing where it takes you. It might take you apart, maybe not forever, but in this moment in time, space, it's very important to witness yourself in this moment, and to see something bigger that you are able sometimes to perceive with your rational thinking brain. And then allowing that higher space to consume you, to wash over you, so that you are free. You are free of limitations, of expectations, of judgments. You just witness yourself in that relationship, and through that witnessing you can become it, you can live it, you can co-create within it in that triangulation space and the cosmic convergence. So more about convergence coming up soon after my shorter break. I'll talk to you soon. I hope you enjoyed this video. Mindful relationships, really important. And please share with me anything you're guided to share. It's always welcome. And as always, so much love, wisdom, and power.